Good morning students. Many researchers claim that the word Kit Kat, the chocolate Kit Kat we eat, has come from the root word Kit Kat, which was a literary movement during the 18th century. Yes, the term Kit Kat was coined in 18th century to point out the group of writers who were associated with the same literary movement. Actually, there was a group of writers who used to meet together in a club where the name of the cook of that particular club was Christopher Catt. And from the word Christopher, Christ, it became Kit, and from the word cat, it became cat. So from Christopher Cat, it became Kit Kat. But an important point here to remember is that in some websites or in some books, you will find the spelling of Kit Kat having K-I-T-C-A-T. But most of the websites also claim the spelling of Kit Kat is K-I-T-K-A-T. Most often we use the word K in the term Kit Kat. So there was a group of writers who used to visit a club where the cook of that particular group was Christopher Catt, from which the word Kit Kat was derived. And among this particular literary group, the popular personalities are Richard Steele, Joseph Addison, William Congreve, John Locke, Robert Walpole, and Marlborough. If you have been preparing for UGC NET examination, then you must remember that this Richard Steele and Joseph Addison has already been asked many times in the past several years. Almost every year they are asking 2 to 3 magazines in the UGC NET examination. So try to remember that the magazines Tatler and Spectator were started by two important figures of 18th century, and that is Richard Steele and Joseph Addison. Apart from that, we have another dramatist, or you can say a writer from this particular literary group, which is William Congreve, who has written the famous work The Way of the World. From 2017 to 2019 UGC NET examination, the questions have been there from this particular play, The Way of the World. Almost 4 to 5 times this particular play, The Way of the World, have been asked. So don't forget to study The Way of the World by William Congreve in detail. You can skip the other personalities from this literary movement. For instance, you can skip John Locke or Marlborough, or you can say Robert Walpole. Yes, John Locke we will study in literary criticism. But when we talk about literary movements, you can skip John Locke, Robert Walpole, and Marlborough. Yes, Robert Walpole was the father of Horace Walpole. Horace Walpole was the writer of the Castle of Otranto. Okay, so you don't have to study these three personalities in this particular literary group, but try to remember the names of these 3 personalities along with the other 3 personalities which we have just discussed. For instance, Richard Steele, Joseph Addison, and William Congreve. Alright, so in this video we are going to discuss about this particular group, Kit Kat Club, and we are also going to look at the points which are important from UGC NET perspective. So before we continue our discussion on Kit Kat Club, if you are preparing for UGC NET examination or GATE examination in English literature, then you can simply check out our study material from our official website limitlessliterature.com. You can check the link in the description below to know more about our study material. Now, without any further delay, let's continue our discussion on Kit Kat Club. So in the previous video on our discussion on Cavalier poets, we have discussed that Cavalier poets were the poets who used to support the King Charles I, and there were other writers who used to follow the Puritans. For instance, we had Andrew Marvell and John Milton. Yes, those John Milton and Andrew Marvell used to follow Puritans, and on the other hand, we have Cavalier poets who used to follow King Charles I. And after the execution of King Charles I in 1949, Puritans came into the power. The Roundheads came into the power. The Roundheads means Puritans. Yes, for Puritans we use the term the Roundheads, and for King Charles I we use the term Cavalier. So the Roundheads were now into the power. And after 1658, when Oliver Cromwell died, the monarchy was restored in Great Britain. Alright, so for a brief time there was a republic in Great Britain, and after the death of Oliver Cromwell, the monarchy was restored in Great Britain. The next important event that happened in the history of England was the event of 1688, which was the Glorious Revolution. in 1688 the glorious revolution happened. So what happened was, just like we have the two parties BJP and Congress in India, the same way we had two parties in Great Britain during 18th century, during 17th and 18th century. So in the late 17th century we had two parties, Whig and Tory, just like we have BJP and you can say Congress. The same way we had Whig and Tory during 1688. After this we have a literary club which is supporting this political party, which is supporting the opinions of this political party, and that we know as Kit Kat Club. Yes, Kit Kat Club used to favor the Whig. And we have another group of writers, Scribblers Club, which supports the Tory party. So now we have two literary movements which came into the picture, which came into the history of English literature, Kit Kat Club and Scribblers Club. We have writers and personalities such as Joseph Addison, Richard Steele, we have Marlborough, we have John Locke, Robert Walpole, William Congreve, which comes under Kit Kat Club. And on the other hand, we have Dr. Arbuthnot, Alexander Pope, Jonathan Swift, John Gay, Thomas Parnell. All these writers came under another literary movement, Scribblers Group, which we are going to discuss in our upcoming videos. So these two groups always remained in the opposition of each other. Whereas we have Richard Steele and Joseph Addison in this Kit Kat Club trying to bring out some kind of new writing style, some kind of essays. Yes, they were the people who used to write essays in the magazines like Tatler and Spectator. Tatler came in 1709 and Spectator came in 1712. On the other hand, we have the Scribblers Group, Scribblers Club, who was founded by Jonathan Swift in 1714. These writers from Scribblers Group, like Jonathan Swift, Alexander Pope, Dr. Arbuthnot, were much more bitter, were much more violent if we compare to the Kit Kat Clubs. These writers from Scribblers Group were deeply lonely. For instance, Jonathan Swift was a misanthrope. Alexander Pope, who too had no friends. Dr. Arbuthnot, yes, Dr. Arbuthnot was a little amiable, but he too was a violent personality. So these Scribblers Group were against everyone. They were against the society which is now going down because of social injustice and corruption. So these writers from Scribblers Group were writing against the social injustice happening in the society. And then we have another group of writers which we are discussing in this particular video, Kit Kat Club. We have William Congreve. The Way of the World is a kind of satire on the society. Alright, so you don't have to go through any of the work in the details from this particular group Kit Kat Club, except a few ones like The Way of the World. Yes, The Way of the World is the most important work that you should go through if you are preparing for UGC NET examination. And then you have to remember just about the Tatler and Spectator and other magazines which came during 19th century and 20th century, like Edinburgh Review. Then we have a lot of magazines were there which came after Tatler and Spectator. Tatler and Spectator marked the beginning of magazines. Alright, so you just have to remember the name of these 5 to 6 personalities which are associated with Kit Kat Club, and then you have to remember the important points that I have mentioned in this video. You don't have to go through any details except whatever the points which I have mentioned in this video. So this is what I have to share in this video. In the next video we are going to discuss Scribblers Group. Alright, so if you are new to this channel, then don't forget to subscribe the channel for more updates on English literature. So that's it for this video. Thank you.